Hi there, my name is Abu and welcome to my channel. Now in this video, we are going to learn how to authenticate users using Firebase. Now in every application out there, or rather most applications out there, you will find that there is a need to authenticate users, meaning that you need to have a login, logout system that can authenticate users to access certain pieces of your application. Like say if the user needs to access their dashboard, or if they need to pay up a certain bill, or if they need to access their data in your application. Every user should have a different dashboard for this. Now, how are we going to do this? We're going to use the React router, first of all, to route the user from, let's say, the homepage to the dashboard, for example. And then we're also going to learn how to protect this route. That means that if somebody goes to the address bar and manually type in the route to the dashboard, they will not be allowed to access that page because they are not authenticated unless they log into the system or they create an account with you in the system. Now, this is going to be a fun one also, and I cannot wait to get started. See you there. For this application, I'm going to use the Microsoft VS Code. Now, you can use any text editor out there of your choice that you want. It's perfectly fine, but I prefer to use the Microsoft VS Code, and I would advise you to use the same if you want to follow along with this course. Now, first things first is I want to initialize my React application. Now, I will not use the Create React app, which is a little bit slower, and there's a tool now which is gaining popularity every day, and that is called Vite, and that's the one I'm going to use. So this is the website, vitejs.dev, and I'll just get started, and all the way down you will see what it does, and you can read this anytime you want, but all I want is to copy this initialization. So I'll just copy this, really basic, come back to VS Code, open up my terminal and paste it there, and then initialize my React application. And now it's asking for the project name, and I already have a folder, so I'll just put a dot for you to install in the same folder. And the framework, I'll just go with React, and I just want JavaScript, enter, and it's done. So I need to install these packages, so npm install or in npm I if you've worked with npm before. That's the shortcut, and I'll install my packages. So after that installation is complete, we can clear this terminal. And the next thing we want to do is also to install the React router. And when you go to reactrouter.com, we're going to use the React router version 6. You have to be careful, it's a little bit different. So there's version 5. So if you're migrating to version 5 and 6, there's a documentation here. Or if you're maintaining a project that is using React router version 5, you can also look at the documentation, but in this course, I will use React Router v6. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So when I come to tutorial over here, there's loads of things you can read about over here. You can come back to this documentation. It's well documented and you can read through all of this, but I'll just pick whatever I need. Now, all I need to do is install the package. You can see over here, React Router DOM. So that's all I need. Copy that and back to the project, and on the terminal, paste it there and install the React Router DOM also. When this installation is done, I can also run my application. So npm run dev to run the Vite application, and this should start my development server. And now I can run this on my browser. So back to my browser, I'll just run localhost, not 5000, but 5173, and this should start my application that I just created with Vite and React. And now we can get started with the fun part. So first thing we want to do is to create the pages. We're going to just create the simple pages that we're going to use for this application, like the home page, the dashboard, and the accounts page where the user can log in or create an account. Let's do that first, and then also we'll configure the routing between these pages before we can actually start to configure Firebase. So back to VS Code, when we look at our folder tree, in the source directory, let's look at the app.js. This is what we have that's running right now, and we don't need most of this. We don't need that. We don't need any of these importations up here, and I'm just gonna remove everything within this div all the way down. We don't need any of that. We can just say here, this is the app.js page, just to show us how it looks like on the browser. And now, so save that and let's see what it looks like. Back to the browser, and this is not centered. Let's go back and see why. I need that in the center. App.js, let's look at the CSS. Everything should be centered. So on the top, we deleted the importation for the app.css file. So I'll just import again app.css. I need everything to be centered. So back to the browser. Yes, this is the effect that I wanted. The next thing I'm going to do is to just create these pages. Now in the source directory, I'll just create a new folder and call it pages. And I'm going to need a couple of pages. And I'll just create all of them at once over here. So the first page that I'm going to create in there is the home page. I need the homepage.jsx. And the next page I want to create is also called the error page. We shall also handle errors in case someone navigates to a route that does not exist. It should display this error page. And then I'll also need the dashboard. This is the route that we shall protect from the users in case they are not authenticated. So dashboard.jsx, and I'll also need the authentication page where the user can log in or they can create an account. So .jsx, and these are my initial pages. Now after creating all these pages, I want to initialize a boilerplate code in all these pages. So I'll just press in RAFCE to initialize a boilerplate code. Now how am I doing this? This is very simple. It's coming from an extension that I installed over here. You can see it has 7 million downloads already, and it's called ES7 plus React or Redux or React Native snippets. You should install this extension and it will make your life easy. So using that extension, I've initialized the authentication page. That's all I need from this right now. I can even save it. And the dashboard, same thing, RAFCE, and it will create for me a boilerplate code. I don't even need this React importation anymore. You don't need that in React apps anymore, by the way. So I'll just remove that and come to this and also save that. And in the error page, RAFCE, initialize that page also. And in the home page, the same thing. That is all I need to do. Now I have all my 4 pages and I'm ready to start building this. Now, how am I going to start doing this? First things first, I need to bring in the router. So I need to create my routes and I need to create all of my pages. I'm going to create my routes in the index.js module because normally you can create these routes even in the app.js, but I want my router browser, the one that's going to tell React that all these pages are in the route stack, to be in the main.jsx file. Now all the way to the top, I will import the browser router. Now this is the component that is going to encapsulate the entire application, and then it's going to tell React which routes are in the route stack. Now all the way down, so I will encapsulate using this, that's the browser router, and then I will just I'll cut this from here and then I'll paste this under the router. Now this means that the application has routing already in the entire system. Now this is all we're going to do in this file. Everything else we're going to do in the app.js file. Now in the app.js file, all the way to the top, we need to import some things from the router, and we're importing 2 things. So we're importing the routes and from the React router DOM, and we're also importing the route. Now, these are 2 things that you will see how we're going to use them, and I can even save that for now. And all the way to the bottom, I actually do not need this div anymore. I can actually take this out. I don't need that anymore, and I don't even need this also anymore. So I'll put here the routes. So this just tells the router that these are the routes that I want you to look at when you're routing through my application. So the first route we're going to create is the very simple one, and I can close that for now. And I'm just going to put here the path. The path to this route is surprise, 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 is the home page. That's the first route you're going to create. And the element for this route is the home component. Now over here, I'll also just have to import the home component, and this is coming from pages and the home.jsx. You don't need to add here .jsx, by the way. And this is the element that we're going to use. So I'm just gonna put here home, this one over here, and wait, something is happening here. This is not what I want to do. It's supposed to be inside here, and home component, and I can close it like that. So when I save this, I should see a change in my browser, but there's still an error over here. What is going on? Okay, I don't need these 2 things, and now I can save, and I don't even need this also, because I can just use a self-closing tag here to save space. So when I save that, back to the browser, I should see a difference. Now I'm seeing home. Other than the app.js, I'm seeing the home page. Now that's perfect. Now, back to the application, I need to create another route. Now, the next route I want to create is the authentication. I mean, literally, this is where the user is going to either sign in or sign up to your application. So the path to this, you can give it any name you want, obviously. So the name I'm going to give this is authentication. That is the name, because this is where the users have to authenticate themselves and tell us who exactly they are. So the element for this, I'll also have to bring this from up here. I'll have to import authentication, this one over here. It's coming from pages again, authentication. Let me just close this project tree so we have more space. And this is coming from, this is going to be authentication. So save that also. And if I come back to my browser and all the way to the top and I just say authentication, I should see authentication. Perfect. And now I can even come back home because there's a stack now and the React router has a history stack already in it. So I can actually go back and I will see the home page again over here. Back to the application, we need to do other things as well. So also we need to catch the errors. What if somebody tries to access a route that does not exist? So we're going to try to catch that. So route and the path. Now here React router DOM, just put an asterisk and that is it. And that will catch all the paths that do not exist in your application. So we're also going to import the error page, this one over here. Perfect. And that's the element that, let me just close this first. And that is the element that we are going to use that when someone goes to a route that does not exist. So go to the error page and self-closing tag, save it. So back to the browser. So if a user navigates to a page that doesn't exist, something like that, what do you know? They're going to be taken to the error page. And you can design this error page, obviously, the way you want. Obviously, tell somebody maybe this page doesn't exist and this is the button for you to go back to the home page. So you can do that any way that you want. You can design it any way that you want. So back to the application. And the other thing we're going to do is also create the dashboard page. Now, this dashboard page is also going to come a little bit down. You'll just see why. I'm putting this a little bit farther down. Now, this is going to be the private page. I can actually name this up here. I can just put a comment over here and call these are the public pages. And I think this will be easier. If you have many pages in your application, you can actually name them like this so that you can clearly see which are private pages and which are the public pages. So this is my private pages. So in the private pages here, this is just the path again, and the path to this is going to be the dashboard. And in the dashboard, I have an element for that also. And all the way to the top, I will import dashboard. This one over here, it's coming from pages and dashboard. And your IntelliSense should actually help you with this, by the way. And if it doesn't, you can manually type it out. So the element here is the dashboard page, this one over here, and self-closing tag, and then I can save it. Now, if I come back to my application and just to check, and I don't want this route does not exist, and I just go to the dashboard, and I should be redirected to the dashboard page. Now, those are the simple things that we have done, and we are going to make this a little bit better. The first thing you're going to do, obviously, is go back to the home page, and we want to add a button that is going to send the user to the dashboard. Now, all the way over here, I can put this in an H1 because I have some styling, by the way, that comes out of the box with React. So if you go to the main index.css file, you can see over here we have the A tags have a certain format and they have a color, and even the body has a certain design, and then the H1s they are bigger in size. So I'm going to use that in the home page. So I'll just use H1. So here I can say go to dashboard, and then go to the dashboard like that. And then underneath this, I can also say I can add a button here actually. So this button is just going to say dashboard. And when I save that, you should see a very nice change in the browser. So back to the home page, I don't need anything here. I just want to go to the home page, and I should see something like that, because out of the box, Vite gives you some few designs. So I have a button, very nice looking button over here. So when I click on this button, nothing happens yet. And let's just make something happen when you click on the dashboard button. And back to VS Code, and I need to import something. I don't need this importation, by the way, from React, and I'll import something here from React Router DOM. That is the link. So this is the link that is going to tell whenever you click something, take me from this page to this specific page. So I will wrap the button in this link. So link, and I'll just close it, and I'll wrap the entire button, cut it from there and paste it down here. So in this link, it has a to prop, and this prop should just tell this link on where to go. So if somebody clicks on this button, go to the dashboard. Simple as that. So when I save this now, back to my application. So when I click on this, I go to the dashboard. That's perfect. When I come back, and I have this already working. Now, obviously, this is not what we want. We want it that when someone clicks on the dashboard, something happens. I mean, we want to protect that route. You have to be authenticated first before you can access the dashboard. But we will get to that. First, also, I need us to do something in, let's just go back to my application. Now, in the authentication page, we need to do something here, obviously, and that is creating the forms where the user can sign in or where the user can sign up to your application. Now, these forms are also going to be really easy, very, very basic forms. So we're going to start with the login form. It's going to be really easy, actually. So in the source directory again, these are components that we can use throughout our application. We'll just create a folder called components, and we can call this login.jsx. Obviously, you can name this, give it a better name, but I'm just going to call it login. So since I have that extension, I'll just call it again RAFCE, but this time we don't need React, but we shall need use state because we're going to pick some data from the input of the user. So constant here, and this is going to be email. Obviously, we want someone to put in their email, and then set email, and this is going to come from use state. Now I have another artificial intelligence extension called tab9 that is giving me all of these hints and auto completions. So this is going to be an empty string to begin with, and then I also have constant, and this is the password obviously, and set password, and this is going to come from use state if I can type it right. So empty string again over here, and then I can save that for now. Doesn't really matter. And after I have saved that, I'll just come here now and create my form. Now this is going to be a form obviously, and this form is just going to have a couple of things. And the first thing it's going to have is the input. The first input of email, I can just come and look for email, that one there, and it should create for me something like this. It's also going to have another input. I can just press Shift and Alt and the down arrow. It's going to copy that line down. So this next input is going to be the password. So that is the type of that input. And then I'll also have a button here, and this button is going to be the submit button because this is a form. We're going to handle the submit. So this is the login button. So when I save that, I should see something on my browser. And when I go here to authentication, I should see the form. I'm not seeing the form yet. That is because we haven't brought it in. So this form, when you go to authentication page, and all the way to the top, we need to import it first if we want to see it. So import login, this one over here in the components directory, and the login. And if I want to see that, I should just come over here and I should call login, that one, and self-closing tag. And I should see it in my browser now. And this doesn't look nice at all. So we are also going to create a global design for our forms. So back to VS Code, let's create a global design for our forms. So index.jsx. So we can create it all the way down over here, doesn't matter. So the form is going to have a display, and we want the display to be flex. The flex direction, obviously, since you see over here, this is going in a horizontal, but we want them to be in a column direction. So display flex direction, this is going to be column. We want it to go from top to bottom, and save that. And also we need to have a small gap between all these elements. So this is just 20 pixels. That's good enough for me. Again, you can make these designs the way you want. So margin bottom also just going to be like 40 pixels. Now, these are the designs that worked for me. So when I come back to this, I should see something like that. But the input also doesn't look very nice. Let's have a general look for the input also. So back to VS Code, under the form, we're going to have the inputs. Now, all inputs should have a certain look. Starting with the border radius. Now, I'm just going to give this 8 pixels. Just have a little bit of a border. And then I have a padding. The padding here is going to be top, bottom is 0.6 rem. This worked for me, by the way. You can decide with whichever design you want. And then left and right is 1.2 rems. My font size, I just want it to be 1 EM. Now rem is going to be very big. I'm going to use EM for this. And font weight, I'm just going to give this 500. A little bit bold. Now, this is not a CSS course, but let's just get this out of the way, the designs. And now we can even close this. We're not going to touch designs anymore. We already have our designs for the entire application. I promise, no more designs. So back to the application, you should see a nice looking form, something like that. Now, this is perfect, much better than it was before. Now we can work with this. Back to VS Code, and I'll come back to my login.jsx, and above the form, I want to put something, and I'll use a fragment for this, and I'll just cut this because I'm going to put something else above the form. So I want to use a fragment. So here I'm just going to use an H2. Then I'm just going to tell the person log in to your account. Something like that. It doesn't matter what you write, actually, it's up to you. And I should see something like that. Now, all the way to the bottom, I need also to tell the person, like, what if they don't have an account yet? So I should tell this person, if you don't have an account, then what do? You can create an account. So have no account, question mark. And then I can give them a button here that takes them to the page where they'll have to sign up. So sign up down there. We shall come back and fix all of this, by the way. This, we're just creating the look. So we have something like that, a nice looking form. I mean, if someone has an account, they can log in. If they don't have an account, they can click on sign up and they go to the sign up page. It's as simple as that. Now let us also create the sign up. So back to VS Code, and in the components folder, we're going to create another file called signup.jsx. Now this sign up, same thing. I have that extension, RAFCE. We actually going to copy most of the things from the login page. You don't need to see me type out all of those. First things first, we are going to bring in the state all the way up here. So just paste this in, and then login form again. We shall definitely need an email and password. So copy this and paste this above. And then we're also going to bring in the form. So just copy all of this fragment and just bring this also over here. And then we're just going to change a few things, obviously. Now this here is going to say sign up and have an account. Now this is not have no account, but have an account, and then log in. So this is just going to say log in. Maybe have this L to be capital. So save that, and I need to bring this into the authentication page. First, I'm going to import it to the top. So import sign up, this one over here from the components, and I can put them side by side for now. It doesn't matter. We are going to fix this, by the way, and I can use sign up here, self-closing tag, just to see how it looks like. And back to the browser, we should see. Now this is not supposed to be login to your account. I can also change this to something else over here. Not log into your account, but create your account. So save that, and this should look neat. And so I can create your account. Now we are supposed to show one form at a time. Now this is where the fun part begins. We want to show one form at a time, meaning that this user can only see one form at a time, obviously. So when they click on sign up button here, it should toggle to this form down over here, and when they click on the login, it should toggle this form over here. And as you must have guessed, we're going to use the state again in this. So back to VS Code, and in the authentication, this is where we're going to use the state. So use state. We're using it here because all these two forms lie in the authentication folder. So constant something here. So we're just going to use toggle form, or you can just say toggle, doesn't matter. set toggle, and this is what's going to handle the state. So use state, and this is going to start as true. So when this is true, toggle one form. When it's false, toggle the other form. That is the logic in this. Now, all the way down here in this div, I can use this toggle. So toggle, and if it's true and if it's false. So if toggle is true, show me the login form. I'll just put this over here. And if toggle is false, show me the sign up form. I'll put this over here. So I can save that, and in my browser, I should only see the login form. Now back to VS Code. In order to make this work all the way up here, I need to handle toggle. This is going to be a simple function here that doesn't take anything. And all this function does is set toggle. Just set it to the opposite of what toggle is. Now this exclamation mark here means that just give me the opposite of whatever toggle is. So if it's true, make it false. If it's false, make it true. So I'm going to pass this function as a prop to both this login and sign up forms. So I can just call this toggle form. That's the name of the prop. And this is equal to handle toggle. And then I'll do the same. I'll just copy this actually, because it's going to be the same thing. So I'll just copy this to sign up. I'll give them the same prop names. It doesn't matter, it will work. So in the login, I'll need to bring in the props over here in order for me to access that. And in the props, now on this button, I'm going to handle on click. What happens when somebody clicks on this button? So on click is equals to props dot, what did we give it? We gave it toggle form. So I can just copy that. So props dot toggle form. And I can just copy all of this since it's the same. So copy this. I'm going to save that first. So copy this also in the sign up. So first of all, I need the props, and then all the way down. So on click, when someone clicks on this, not on can play, but on click. So when somebody clicks on this, they should be given something. So Control V, props the toggle form. This should actually work now. So back to the browser, and there is an error here. Let's inspect this error. F12, bring in the dev tools, and in the console. So what is happening here? It's telling us, okay, let me just close this and let's reload this page, and we can get a new message. So it's telling us handle toggle is not defined. Handle toggle, where did we use handle toggle? So handle toggle is not defined. Where is this coming from? Let's look at the console. Authentication, line number 8. That's where this is coming from, line number 8. Oh yeah, okay. Constant handle toggle. That should fix the issue. And we can close this now and just minimize that. And we should see the form. Now when I click on sign up, I go to sign up. When I click on login, I come to login. Now the other thing we want to do is, let's just make this work. The form, the input fields, we should make them work. So back to VS Code, and the login first and foremost. Now this is type password. We can put a placeholder here just to tell the user what they're supposed to write in. So the placeholder is email. Now even this should have a placeholder here, and the placeholder here is password. Password, if I can spell it right. Perfect. Now also same thing. I can just copy this. I don't need to write all of this down, and paste it there, and also copy the one for password, because they are the same forms basically, and paste this over there, but they'll do different things obviously. So back to the browser, I can see a very neat inputs now. Even on sign up, very neat inputs now. Now in the login form, I need to make some things work. So when the user types in, it should actually work. Over here, I have a value. Now this value is the one that's coming from the state. So the value is going to be email. This is the one that's coming from the state. And if you've worked with forms before, we need to have an on change also. So on change is equal to, now this is going to take something, or rather an event, and it's an anonymous function. And this is where we're going to set email to whatever the user is typing in. So that's going to be e.target.value. Now, if you don't know where I'm getting all of this from, the e.target.value. Basically, e handles everything that the user types in. If the user types in something, it's going to pick it. Now, in the target is where you will find the value of whatever user is typing in, like the letters. Now, that's how that works. And basically, it's the same also. So I'll just copy both of these and just paste them down here and change this to password, and then change this to set password. It's going to be the same thing. And also I can also just copy this, since again it's going to be the same thing also in the sign up form. So I'll just come to the sign up, paste this there, and then come also and pick the one for email, and then I'm going to paste it also up here. Perfect. Now all my forms should work. So when I come and type here something, I should get and password. Perfect. Now after creating all of that, I think we can start with our application, because let's just have a recap. What happens now is that when you're on the homepage, let's go to the homepage, the dashboard. So when you're on the homepage and you click on the dashboard, you're gonna go straight to the dashboard. Actually, let's make this dashboard also look nice. Back to VS Code, and let's go to the dashboard. We can give this an H1 here, and then just say welcome to dashboard. That's a little bit better. And back to the browser. So this is much better. But the point I was trying to make is, when you're on the homepage or rather any other page, and when you're trying to access the dashboard, this is going straight to the dashboard. So how are we going to start protecting our routes? Because the user should not be allowed to access the dashboard if they're not authenticated. And this authentication means signing in or creating an account with your application. So this means that we have to start bringing in Firebase. And this is the best part about this application, Firebase. Now, just go over to Firebase. You must have a Google account. You can use any Google account that you have. When you just go to firebase.google.com, and I have this account already, you can read about Firebase. It has so much you can do with Firebase. But basically, we're going to use Firebase in this course to authenticate the user. And this is going to be the fun part of this application. Now, when you go to firebase.google.com, obviously this is the first page you'll see, and all I need you to do is go to the console. So when you open up the console, this is where you can start creating your first Firebase application. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so that you can see what I'm doing. Now this is the Firebase, and now we can create the first project. So create project and the project name. So I can call this route protection. You can call this anything you want. Obviously, I'm just going to call it route protection. And obviously, you need to agree to the terms of Firebase, and you confirm that you'll use Firebase. Yeah, you can read through all of that and then continue. And do you want Google Analytics for this project? No, I just want to show you what it does. But you can do this at your own time. You can look at the Google Analytics for the project, and then I'll create the project. Now, it will take some time to build up this project. I'll come back when it's complete. So after the project has finished being created by Google, we can continue to the project, and we should see the project dashboard, something like that. Now, obviously, you can get started with creating an app. Now, we want to create in the project, we want to create an app within the project. So you can create an app for iOS, Android, web, Unity, or Flutter. But in this project, we're going to create a web application and just give it a nickname. And this nickname, I'll just call this route protection. Again, you can give this again any name you want, but this is just a nickname for the project. And no, I don't need any hosting. And then I'm just going to register the app. And after registering the app, do not close this next page, because we are going to need a couple of things from here. This is very important here, because this is what we're going to bring into our application. This is the Firebase SDK that we're going to bring into the application. And as I can see, it's telling us first things first, we need to install Firebase. So just copy this and back to VS Code, open the terminal again, and I can open another terminal, the second one. So I'll just install Firebase from here. So paste this there and install Firebase, and that should install. And while that is installing, let's just go back and see what it's telling us. So it's telling us, because I use also, by the way, I'm using NPM. If you're using anything else like a tag, you can use this, but I'm using NPM. So that's why I'm choosing this direction. Now, the other thing we need to do is we need to bring this into our application. So I'll just copy all of this up to here. Now, this is my Firebase configuration. Now, you need to notice that I have my auth domain. You can see route protection. This is the name that I gave to my Firebase app. So route protection, and it has a few numbers here, blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is what Google uses to know different applications. So I'll just copy this from the comment. This is all I need for my application now. And back to VS Code, I'm going to do something. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder called Firebase. Now this folder is going to be in the source directory. So open folder, call it Firebase, and in this Firebase folder, I'm going to create a file here, and I'm just going to call this config. Now this is where we're going to bring in Firebase to our application in this config file. Let's just come back when this has finished installing. Now after the installation is complete, now in this file, we're going to paste whatever we copied from Google. So just going to scroll this down, take it down a little bit, and all the way to the top, we're going to import something. So import Firebase. As you must have guessed, we're just importing Firebase from Firebase. Now in my application, for some reason, I have to use compact and then app. But if yours works with app straight away, you should use that. And then I'm also going to import the authentication because we need authentication from Firebase. So Firebase compact again, and then we need the authentication. Now these are all SDKs that we're bringing in from Firebase. Now all the way to the bottom, we have to initialize our application. So Firebase.initialize app, that's the one we want. And then we're just going to pass in the Firebase config, this one up here. So just copy that and paste this there. And we are going to create a constant called project auth. Now this is the authentication of our application now. Now this is going to come from Firebase.authentication, and we call this there. And then all the way to the bottom, we need to export this. So export project auth. And this is going to be, put it in and save that. We do not need this file anymore. We can actually close it. First things first, what you're going to do now is we're going now to create the users. And these are also going to come from separate files also within the source directory. I'm just going to create a folder and I'll just call it auth. Now this is where the authentication is going to happen. Now the first thing we're going to do here is to sign in a user. So when the user wants to log in, for example, this is the file that should handle the user logging in. So create the new file here and just call it user login.js. Now this is not JSX, this is just JavaScript, and we're going to bring it into our code. Now let's pause that for a minute. Let's come back to Firebase. Now that we are done copying all of this, we can continue to the console. That is all that we needed there. Now these are the different things you can do with this application that you just created. But what we want to create is the authentication right here. Very easy. Just going to click authentication and we're going to activate something in the authentication. Now, obviously, this is the authentication landing page. You can read whatever you want down here, but all I want to do is get started with authentication. And once I get started with the authentication, I want to just use sign in with email and password. I mean, look at this. There are many different ways you can do, but I want to go with the simplest just to show you how to go about the Firebase authentication. So I will enable email and password. I will leave this off for now. You can try this during your own time, but I just want to use the sign in method with email and password. So in order for us to see how this works exactly, we can come back to the users in the application. Currently, we don't have any users and we just add a new user to our database. So email, as you must have guessed, I'm just gonna call it abu.gmail.com. I don't have this email, by the way. It's just easy for me. Password, I'll just say mine1234, and I'm going to add this user. So this is the user that we're going to use to see if we can actually sign in into our application. So back to VS Code. So on the top, we're going to import project auth. It's not giving me a hint, so that's fine. We're going to import something from, go back one folder, go into Firebase and config.js, and just import for me project auth. Now, this is what we're going to use to authenticate this user when they want to sign in or rather log into the application. So all the way to the top, I'm going to create something here, error. I'm just going to call it error for now. And this is what is going to hold any errors that's going to be created when the user is trying to sign in. Basically, that's what this means. Just catch any error. Whatever error that's going to be created by Firebase, we're going to store it in that, and then we can display to the user. Now, errors include the username and password does not exist, or rather it does not match, it's not in the database, errors like that. that we can show to the user. Now we're going to create something here, constant login. Now this is what's going to handle the logging in. Now since it's going to use a network call, we're going to async and await it. So this is a function that, as you must have guessed, accepts an email and password. Now this is what the user types in, obviously, and it's going to return something here. And what does it return? Again, when this function is executing, just make this error null. What if there was something in this error? So first, before and foremost, make this error null before you try anything. So as you must have guessed, we need to try and catch something. When you're making network calls, we try and catch. So constant response. Now this is what's going to hold everything that is going to be sent by Firebase. So we're going to await something. What are we awaiting? As you must have guessed, project auth dot sign in with email and password. It's as simple as that. So let me just remove this from there and then make you able to see this. So sign in with email and password. So this expects an email and a password. And obviously down here, also error. If this executes, we want this error to be null if this part of the block executes. And then maybe what we can do here is just console.log this response. Now this response has a user object. Let me just show you. It has very many things, but we just want to see the user. So it will give us the username and password. And then in the end, just return this response. In case there's an error, I'll just rename this to error. In case there's an error that's coming from there, we're just going to save it in this error now. So error is equals to error.message. Thank you so much. Tab 9 AI extension. You can install that, by the way. It's really nice. And then maybe console log this error just to see what it is in case we want to do something. So console log that error over there. And after doing all of that, now we're going to create the function that is going to have both the error and this login. So we're just going to call this user login, and this is going to be equal to, doesn't take anything, and it just returns the error and the login. It's as simple as that. And then we have to export it. Obviously, in order for us to use this, we have to export it. So export default user login, this one over here. So I'm going to save that. So this is what it's going to handle anytime the user is trying to log in. But before we go to try to make the user log in, let's handle one issue. Back to the browser. When someone clicks go to dashboard, we are going straight to the dashboard. And as it stands, we haven't tried to log in. And that is something we want to bring into our application, whereby when someone clicks go to dashboard, it has to check. So we want to protect our route, the dashboard route. If someone has not logged in yet or signed up yet to your account, you're going to be redirected to the authentication page. Let's do that first before we can try signing in the user. So back to the application, and on the folders again, in the source directory, we're going to create another folder called layouts. Now this layout is going to have the layout that is going to protect our routes. So in the layout directory, we have to create a new file here. We're just going to call it private routes layout. You can call this anything you want. Again, I think this is just easy for me to remember when I'm calling it in other components. So RAFCE with that extension that I had, I don't even need this anymore. We can just remove that. And now this is what I have. Now this is the layout that I'm going to use to protect the routes. So all the way to the top, I need to import a few things. Outlet. Now this is coming from the React Router DOM. Now what the outlet does is basically it's going to render any child that's within the layout, as we are going to see shortly. Now, also we're going to import use location. Now this location, I'm going to show you also how to do this, and I'm also going to import navigate. And these are all coming from the React Router DOM. Now this is routing in action. When I come also down here, I need to import also something. So I'm also going to import the project auth. So this project auth is going to come from the Firebase, and we shall see how that works shortly. So first things first, we're going to bring the location, and this is going to come from use location. Thank you so much, tab 9 AI. You can install that also, like I've said now like a couple of times. And what are we returning here? Now this is what's going to be the tricky bit. Not the tricky bit, but you have to pay close attention here. We are going to check before returning anything. We check the project auth. Now this is from Firebase. Project auth dot, it has many things, but we want to look at the current user, meaning that if someone logs in, this current user object will not be null. It will exist. It will have something in it. And if someone has not logged in or signed up, this current user will not hold anything. So that's the trick we're going to use here. So when it's true and when it's false. So when this is true, all it's going to do is just give me the outlet. And this means that just run any children that is going to be inside or within this private route layout. That is all this is going to do. Just give me the children of whatever it's going to be there. And you're going to see this in action very shortly. When there's nothing there, we're going to navigate to something. So we're going to navigate, and this is just a self-closing tag. So we're going to navigate to, now remember we created a route in app.js. If this is the one, yes, we created the authentication route. This is where the user has to, if we also come back to the browser and let's just go to the authentication. Now the authentication route is where you can either log in or sign up. Back to VS Code. Now, this is the route that we're going to take the user if there is no current user. So I'm just going to copy this back to private routes. Now, remember what I said. If there's something in the current user, give me the outlet. The outlet means the children of whatever you're going to put down there, and you're going to see this shortly. But if there isn't anything in current user, meaning that it's false or it's null, this is what I want you to do. I want you to take this person to the authentication route or authentication page. And this navigate has something else called state. What is the state of this? Just bring someone from wherever they are, and this is the location. Just have them from that location that they are in, and then we're going to replace it. Normally replace is set to true anyway, but we're going to leave it like that. So replace true, and now we're going to put this in app.js file. Now this is what is going to wrap any of these routes over here. Let me show you. So all the way to the top, we're going to import private routes layout. So we're bringing this in, and in the private routes, remember, this is also a route. So we're going to create another route over here, and we're just going to have this, and this is going to wrap every other private route, and this is going to have only the element. Now this route, that's the private route, it will not have a path. It will only have the element. And this element, surprise, 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 as you must have guessed, is the private routes layout. Close this tag, and then I can save this. Now let's see this in action. Let's see if it will actually work. So back to the browser, let's just go home. When I click on this dashboard, it should not take me to the dashboard. It should, however, take me to the authentication page where I have to authenticate myself. Let's give it a try. So click on dashboard, and there you go. We have protected our route, and let's try it up here. Let's try to just type in here the dashboard route. It's not taking me to the dashboard. It's coming back to the authentication page because we told this from the private route layout that if this current user is not active, reroute this person to the authentication page. How cool is that? That is how easy it is. You can protect your routes in React Router. So when I come to the application, let's go to the home page. So we're in the home page, and let's try going to the dashboard from the home page. Nothing. It doesn't take us to the dashboard. Back to VS Code. Now that we have protected this route, we can now start working with authentication. Now this already, we don't need this anymore also, and we have the login. And now let's try to log in this user. Let's just come to the login.jsx. Now let's try to log in this user. First things first, all the way to the top, we need to import the user login from the auth directory and bring in the user login. And this user login contains two things. So constant, we're going to destructure it from here. This is coming from the user login, and call that from there. And down over here, it has two things. If I press Control and spacebar, it should give me the error that we just created. If you remember, it's returning an error, and then this login function. So in the login, we have the error that's coming from there, and then also the login function. Now we shall use these two things to authenticate this person. Now, first things first, in the form, we need to handle submit. This is going to be equal to, you can just call this handle login. Now we haven't created this handle login yet. We're just going to create it shortly up here. So constant handle login, and this is going to be an async function because we have to await for a network call. And this is going to take an event. Now this event, we shall only use this event to prevent this form from its default behavior. So e.prevent default, that means it should not refresh this page every time we click on the button to submit. Now after preventing the default, we have to await something. So we are awaiting the call to the browser. So log in, and this expects, obviously, like you remember over here, we have an email and a password that it expects. So log in, it expects an email and password. So we need to await that and we check for something. So if there's no error in this entire thing, like an error does not exist, we need to navigate this user to a certain page. So all the way to the top, first we need to bring in a few things. So import use navigate from the React Router DOM. This way we're going to navigate the user from one page to another, and then we can also import use location. Now I will explain to you shortly what this use location does, but when we come down, let's first initialize both of these two things that we just created. So constant navigate, and this is coming from use navigate, obviously, as you must have guessed. And the next one is the location. So constant location, and this is coming from use location. I have tab 9, by the way, the extension. You can also install that. Now, what we want to do with this location is that we want to replace the authentication route. What do I mean by this? If a user is at the home page, now if the user clicks on the go to the dashboard, they are redirected to the login screen. Now after logging in, they'll be redirected to the dashboard. But when we click the back button, we don't want this login to be in the stack. This login route should not be in the stack because the user is already logged in and we want to take this out of the stack. So when they click the back button, they should go back to the page they were before they went to the login screen. Now in this case, they were in the home page. Now that's what you're trying to do here with this location. We are going to remove it from the stack. So constant from, I'll just call this from, by the way, it's okay, you can call it whatever you want. Constant from. Now this location dot state. Now this location has a state. Now if this state has the from and if this state has the path name, you can do all of that. Take them, remove that path name from there, and then have them go back to the initial page that they were in before going to the navigation page. So, or if they were not there, they can just go to the dashboard, and it's as simple as that. So now we check if there's no error. Navigate them, and then we already created this from variable that is holding all of this stack, and it also takes them to the dashboard. So we're going to navigate them to whatever they were coming from to where they were going, but we are taking off the state that they were in. That means the authentication page. We are taking it out of the stack. So replace, and replace is true. That is all we need to do. So we don't want this user, after they've logged in, we don't want them to again go back to the authentication page. And then we can just clear the email field, and then we can also clear the password field. And after all of this, if we want, we can console log something here, which you don't really need to do, but then we can just return, and it should be as simple as that. But if there is any error, we can just have here else. If there's any error, we're going to set error. Now I haven't yet set this up here. I need to add something else, so constant. So this is just going to be the error message, and then set error message. Now this is coming from the state, and I want this to be null initially. I don't want it to have like an empty string. I want it to be null, it should not have anything in it. So else set error message to be equal to the error that is coming from Firebase. Now this is the error that we brought in from the use login up here, and that's the error that we are setting in this error message. Now all the way down, in case there's an error, right above the login button, if there's an error, and then I'll just use the AND operator and just give me a paragraph over here, and then this paragraph should just have that error message that's coming from Firebase. Simple as that. Now let's go back to our browser and test this out, logging in the user. So back to the browser, and I'll just start from the home page again. I want you to see this in action. And in my Firebase, I have this user already created. I can actually copy this username, and I come back, go to dashboard, protected route, paste this there, and I'll just put this mine 1234 if you remember my password. So when I log in, so back to the editor, something is not happening here. It's telling me React does not handle submit, and okay, let's go back and see. Look at the form. It's not handle submit, it's on submit. My apologies there. it's on submit. So this on submit, and it's going to execute this handle login function. So let's try that again. Back to the browser and paste that in, and mine 1 2 3 4 and log in, and we have welcome to the dashboard. And now when I go back to the home page, let's try going back to the home page, and I click dashboard again. Remember, at this point I have already signed in this user, so when I click on go to dashboard, I can go straight to the dashboard. Now the next thing we can do is have a button here to log out the user. So back to VS Code, and in the auth directory again, we can create a new page. So we're going to call this user log out. So we want to log out this user when they are in the dashboard. Now this is going to be almost the same thing again. We're going to import something from, let's go back up one folder, go to Firebase, and from the config.js file, and we are bringing in project auth. All we want to do is log out this user. They are in the dashboard and we want to log them out. Again, in case there's any error, start this with null and constant. So log out, this is going to be equal to, this is an async function again, if you must have guessed, and this async function is going to have something. So in this async function, we can again have the error be equal to null initially, because in case there's any error, we don't want it to appear inside here when this function is executing. So again, we're going to have here a try and catch block, just almost exactly like what we did earlier. So we're going to await something, and that is project auth dot, this is very easy, dot sign out. In case there's any error, just save this error in the error message. So error equals to error dot message in case there's any error. And all the way down, we're also going to do the same thing here. So constant user log out. So this is going to be equal to another function that doesn't take anything, and all it does is return the error and log out. It's as simple as that. And all the way to the bottom, we're going to export default, not a function. We're going to export default user log out. So we don't need this anymore. We've created that. Let's go back to the dashboard where we have welcome to the dashboard. We just have here a button. Now this button is just going to be log out. This is what the user is going to click to log out of the entire application. And all the way to the top, we have to bring in a few things. So import. So this is going to be user logout, and this is coming from the auth and the user logout file. And all the way up here, we're going to handle this logout. Before going down there, we're also going to import something from the React router DOM, and we're just importing the use navigate from the React router DOM. And then also we're bringing in the project auth. And then when we come back to the component itself, we're going to initialize the navigate. So navigate is coming from use navigate, and then also we have a few things to bring in from the user logout. So this is going to be, we shall just destructure it here. So this is user logout, and then we are bringing in control and spacebar. You can see whatever things is being brought in by this specific function that we are importing. So those are the two things we are bringing in, and then we want to handle this logout, and this is going to be really easy. So constant handle logout, if I can spell this right, and this is going to be an async function. Remember, it's doing a network call to something, so definitely an async function, and it's awaiting logout. It's as simple as that, awaiting logout. And then if there's no error, let's just check this. If there's no error over here, if there's no error in any of this, we can just take the user back to the home page. So navigate back to the home page. It's as simple as that. And now we have this button, and then on click. So what happens when somebody clicks on this button? Somebody clicks on it, you should handle logout. So save that, and let's try this out and see if it actually works. So back to the browser, we're in the dashboard. Let's go back to the home page first. So we're in the home page. It's telling us go to dashboard. When you go to dashboard, since the user is already logged in, so when you click on log out, we should be taken back to the home page. So log out, back to the home page. So when you click on dashboard, we should go to the authentication page again, because this user has now been logged out. So the next thing we want to do is sign up a user. Now, this is also going to be really easy. Back to VS Code. Now, in our auth directory again, we're going to create a new file. So user sign up.js. Now, again, this is JS, not JSX. So the user sign up is going to be almost identical. So first, we're going to import something from go one folder up, go to Firebase and config.js. And what we're importing here is project auth. And then we can come down. Same thing again here, we can let error be equal to null, just like how we started it again. And create another function here. We can call it sign up. And this is an async function because it's making a network call. And this expects an email and a password because we need the user to type in their email and password. This is async. I have missed a Y over here. So async function, and this returns something. Again, we don't need any errors. In case there was anything in the error variable, just make it null. And then we come again to the try and catch block. And in this try and catch block, we're just going to have a response. And this is going to be project auth. We're going to await this, by the way. Remember, await project auth dot create a user with email and password. It's literally like that. And what this expects also here is email and password. So down here, let's just check. If there's no response, we're just going to throw a new error. So throw new error, and we can just say something here, something went wrong. And in case there's an error down here, we can also catch it and display it to the user. So error is going to be equal to error.message, and then maybe we can console log this error. Remember, in production, you need to remove all of these console logs. But this is just since we're still developing this app, we can have all these console logs the way we want. But when you're sending this to production, you have to remove all of these console logs. So constant user sign up equals to, this doesn't take anything, and it just return the error and sign up, that one right there. And then we have to export this function. So export default Mr. X, export default user sign up, that one right there. So save that. And now let's find the sign up component, and then we can finish this project. This is the last bit of it. So all the way to the top, we need to import a few things. First, we need to import user sign up. It's coming from the auth directory and user sign up file. And then also we need to import the use navigate. So also import use navigate and use location, because we want to send this user to the next location. So use location, and all of these are coming from React Router DOM. Now all the way to the top over here, we need to just initialize all of these things. So constant navigate, and this is going to be equal to use navigate, and also constant location, and this is going to be equal to use location. And then also we need to destructure user logout. So constant, just destructure this for me. This is coming from user sign up, and again control and spacebar, I should see the two things that are coming from the user sign up. So those two over there. And when I come down, I want to handle the form again. I should not make the same mistake. So this is on submit, not handle submit. So this is going to be handle sign out. And all the way to the top, we're going to create this function. So constant handle sign out, that one over there. And again, this is an async function because it's making a network call, and it's going to take an event. This is just to prevent this form from its default behavior. So e.prevent default, thank you tab 9 for that autocomplete. And I'm going to await something here. I'm going to await sign up, and this sign up takes in an email and password. Now this email and password are not the ones that we created from the function itself, but this email and password are this that the user is actually putting in. So it expects email and password, and we're also just going to handle a few things here and check if there's an error or rather if there is no error, let's do something. If there's no error, we are going to navigate the user to something. Again, we need to replace that specific route. So all the way to the top, after location, we're going to say constant from, and then this is equals to same thing, location dot state, and then we check if this from exists, and then again we check if the path name, and then after that we're just going to navigate them to the dashboard. So take them to the dashboard when everything is all set. So navigate from, and it has something else here, replace, and this is equal to true. Thank you so much Tab9 for the autocomplete. And then after that we can just clear these fields. So set email to be equal to empty string, just clear it. Also set password to also be equal to an empty string, just clear the fields for me, and then you return. Else, in case there's an error, we're also going to set an error message. So all the way to the top we need to create another variable here, so constant error message, and then set error message. This AI is really nice. I don't have to type out all of these things, but I'm going to start it as null, not an empty string. So all the way down over here, else, if there's an error, I'm just going to set error message to that error that comes in from Firebase. So when I come down and I need to set an error over here above the button, I just check if error exists and just give me a paragraph. Just use the p tag, and I'm going to set error.message. So I'm going to save that, and that should actually work also for the signing up. So let's try it and see. Back to the browser and still in the authentication route, then I go to sign up. Now I'm going to create another user. So this user is going to be janedoe@gmail.com, and password, must have guessed, mine 1234, and sign up, and it should take me to the dashboard. It's as simple as that. Now let me check Firebase, and in Firebase I just want to refresh this part, and I should see Jane has been added to the database. Isn't that amazing? Now that should be the end of the course. Now you must have noticed that it takes a little time to load. Now that's where you can add in your own loading page or loading screen or some action to show the user that something is happening. I'll leave that for you, but basically that's how you authenticate the user using Firebase. So what we have done is we have signed in the user, and we have created a user, and we have logged out a user when they are on the dashboard already. I'll also leave the link to this repo in the description of this video, and if you have any questions and any comments, leave them in the comment section, and I'll see you on the next video. Stay hungry and stay foolish.